Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, collectors of all ages, welcome back to AussieVerse. I am OmniBeau, joined by Sharif, and you may have seen things like Knights of X, Legion of X, Sons of X, but have you ever heard of Dom of X? Well, now you have, boys and girls, because he is invading AussieVerse, and thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Dude, thank you for inviting me. When you were like on Jess's stream a couple of weeks ago, you're like, Dom, gotta get you on the show. I'm like, yeah, I would not mind an appearance. Well, I guess here I am. So thank you so much for taking the time to invite me.
Well, I don't know why you're thanking us when you're the one that's gotten up at 4 a.m. to make sure that you could be a part of this. So we owe you a thank you. Thank you so much, sir. It is I don't know if anybody's gotten up that early to be on a show with us. So thank you very much.
I told you guys like real quick before the stream. I mean, I got my 4 hours in. I went to sleep at 8 p.m. or I guess 2000 military time. And so, I mean, I got my 8 hours of sleep. I feel good. I can't wait to talk about whatever it is you want to talk with me about for the next however long or so.
Fantastic. If you wanted to go check out Dom, you can go see his YouTube channel right here. That's covering half of his face. How do we make these banners smaller? I don't know how, but go check him out right there. How long have you been around on YouTube, your channel specifically, Dom?
So this channel has been up since 2021 when I launched it with a buddy of mine. We had a weekly show where we covered comics, just like you guys. We had the stuff like FOC. We covered number ones and all that stuff. But real quick, like he became a dad and I also wanted to graduate from college to get a degree. So we kind of went our separate ways. But we're still friends. We're still good and all that. I mean, I owe him a big thanks to, getting me back on the platform anyways. But since then, and since I've been doing stuff with Omar, my channel has pretty much grown exponentially, which I also have to thank Omar for sure. But yeah, I've been up at there for however long. It's been 3 years now, but it feels like in the last two months or ever since I've gotten back to the YouTube grind, I have gotten from like 170, 180 subscribers to almost 1,200, which is pretty insane to me.
That's pretty good, man. That's pretty good. Well, we've shown your YouTube, so obviously let's go check out some of ours here. We've got AussieVerse at Instagram. You can also go check us out at TikTok. If you want to go to Facebook, you can check us out at AussieVerse for life. Dom, you may want to remember those 3 words in the last question we ask you at the end of the stream. Instagram is with our A51 Designs, who makes AussieVerse look oh so pretty. And as normal, go also check out Cynation Comics for all their great stuff. That is enough of the plug, and let's get down to some loving. Dom, mate, please tell us your entry into comics. What's that all about, mate? You've been reading since you were a kid or recent?
I would say like the first time I got into comics was when my uncle in the Philippines, he's a big comic fan. I mean, I love comics, but he probably is into it more than I am. He gave me a couple issues of Jeff Johns's Green Lantern run, Sinestro Corps War event, and I remember reading that like ending special was like issue 25, and also the one shot. I'm like, man, this is cool. Like they got rings that like could make these super cool weapons. Doesn't matter if it's a fighter jet, doesn't matter if it's a painter, like they could use that against other people. And I was just fascinated with it. And I sort of got, with his help, like into comics. If I have time later, I mean, on my top bookshelf, I got I got some more books from him during the New 52. Same with one of my eldest first cousins. She gave me Jeff Johns' Justice League and Scott Snyder's Batman. So gradually I just started to read more comics as I aged up. And it feels sort of weird because like we had a moment on the stream where we were like, yeah, Dom was in elementary school when New 52 came out. Or I guess primary in your guys' case. But yeah, since then I started to collect comics more on my own. When Rebirth hit, 2018 was the first time I actually went into a comic shop and got some comics for myself. without relying on other people to buy something for me. And for the last couple of years, I've been collecting omnibuses, and it feels like my room is almost filled with, you know, the capacity that I have right now. But that is my story of how I got into comics. I definitely would not be here without my uncle. Definitely wouldn't be here without my cousin either. So big, huge thanks to both of them for that.
I think that was the perfect entry point for anyone to start reading or even collecting comics. Yeah, man, a lot of great new stuff came out around New 52, and especially continuing into Rebirth. And man, your entry with Jeff Johns' Green Lantern couldn't have been any better.
I'm very happy that it was that instead of something else, because had it been something else, I don't know if I would be here talking to you guys right now.
What annoys me about the Green Lantern is I'm a Marvel guy, and I fell in love with Jeff Johns' Green Lantern so hardcore that it shocked me, and I couldn't stop reading it. Got all the omnibuses, all the trades before that, and I kept saying to myself that I want to continue reading Green Lantern. And then whatever came out after Jeff Johns, I said, okay, I'll get to it in a minute. And then I never did. And then it went to a different writer, and then a different writer, and then Far Sector, and then this and that. And now it's been so long that I'm like, I need to go back and just continue it, because I just think I'd love it, you know. I don't even know what Far Sector is, for example, but Jeff Jones's Green Lantern is just the best.
It is. It really is, because I mean, I love the world building aspect of it, where you not only get to see Hal Jordan sort of re-energize himself back into the DC universe, you get to see like, oh, like, yeah, there's an emotional spectrum. This is obvious, like, and I really love like some of the explanations too as to why the Lanterns have, or the Green Lanterns anyways, have a weakness to yellow that isn't just like, stupid Silver Age gags where Hal can spill on a banana, but like, oh, okay, you understand why Sinestro can beat all of them up in a pinch. And then not only are there yellow lanterns, but the entirety of the rainbow is there. You have the Blackest Night prophecy coming to full fruition. The Corps going up against themselves in war against the Green. It's so great, man. I mean, I was a kid when I read all of it, and when I grew up, when I finally got the Omnis to sort of reread and fill myself back up, I was just insane at like mind blown at how much it still holds up, I would argue today, which is a testament in amongst itself and amongst what the comic did for the Corps. So very happy about that.
I gotta be honest though, when Green Lantern was gonna be relaunched, with Hell coming on after Green Lantern Rebirth, I was mad. I was angry because I'm Team Kyle, and it seems like they're putting Kyle in the back burner. It's not gonna be at the forefront anymore. But yeah, who knew how great it turned out to be? But I'm happy.
I never double dip, and again with that DC announcements that you guys did today, I saw absolute Sinestro Corpse War, and I've got to admit, if I've got the money, I'm probably going to get that, because that is just so good. Like, to get that in such a huge format like that, that's going to be pretty epic, I reckon. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Moving on, so we find out how you got into comics. Does that mean you became just a DC guy for a while, or how did you get into Marvel?
I've always been a DC kid, ever since I was a kid. I watched the original Teen Titans show when I was a kid. I also, like, my shows were Young Justice, Batman Brave and the Bold. Like, those were on Cartoon Network and or Boomerang if they were reruns, and that was all I watched. I never was on Disney watching Earth's Mightiest Heroes, any type of Spider-Man when it was Ultimate or Spectacular. I have to admit, like, I do feel a bit weirded out because it seems like everyone around me who's also Filipino They watched Marvel when I was a kid. I'm like, I never got into that, and I feel sort of bad for it. But I always had a DC character somewhere in my house. And so yeah, it took me a very, very long time to get into Marvel. Like, I think I was like 12 years removed from reading my first DC comic and then reading my first Marvel one. Which even like some of the people that I know now, or friends now, I would say, yeah, they're still amazed that like it took you this long to read a Marvel comic. But I eventually broke in. I've read a lot of Marvel in the last 5 years, but I wasn't as big of a Marvel guy, I would say, as a DC fan back then.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I completely stayed away from independence until probably about 5 years ago. I was very, very late to the party and thought I would only ever read Marvel and DC. And now the things that I'm enjoying the most are non-Marvel and DC comics. So, yeah, sometimes you're late to the party. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it.
No, absolutely.
So, have you ever taken a step back from comics, or have you just always been in it since then?
I don't think I ever have. And even at the bits and points that I quote unquote have, there's always something that has pulled me back in. Yeah, even the moments where I actually remember in 2019, that was when You're the Villain dropped during the summer. It was this whole big like, hey, Lex Luthor is giving all of these random villain gifts. He's getting a big power up from Perpetua, the mother of the universe, or whatever. I went, man, a lot of the material here just isn't for me. I'm not enjoying myself as much back when I was a kid, or even a couple of years ago from the start of Rebirth. And I went, is it time to hang up and call it a day for now? But that was, coincidentally, that was also when Marvel came up with the House of X Powers of 10 storyline with Jonathan Hickman. And I kid you not, a friend of mine at the comic shop that I go to, he put a copy of House of X #1 in my hand and said, please read this. You're not going to regret it. I know you're a DC guy, but you need to at least try Marvel for a bit. And I will never, ever, I'll never be grateful enough to him for not only, getting me to switch to Marvel for the next couple of years, but also that's part of how I got my channel name. I would not be an X-Men fan without his guidance and suggestion of a recommendation. So very thankful for that.
That's so cool. I just read the whole Krakoan Age in 3 months, I think it was. 4 years worth of comics, because I kept waiting to dip into it. And I finally got to Marvel Unlimited. And that's how I read all my new stuff now. So speaking of that, do you prefer single issue still, or month, or trades and hardcovers? What's
I
your
buy
jam?
both, but I'm definitely a hardcover person now. Just because of the I want to give a quick shout out to my boss, or the person that I work with over at comicreleases.com. His name is Webhead. I remember talking to him back in 2021 when we first met, and it was just originally because I was still trying to find, I guess, a spot to talk about comics in the online world. Ran across him. We had a really good conversation, and he somehow, the son of a gun, this guy convinced me to drop getting trades, like overall in general, and just start getting hardcovers. And once I got the first taste of an omnibus, it was, which one was it? Which one was my first? I keep going like back. It was probably a Jeff Johns Omni. Because I bought like 10 Omnis in the span of like 2 months because I wanted to upgrade. But once I got the first taste of that oversized, I've never looked back. I mean, I still buy single issues just to see what's going on, because a lot of my friends still are into reading current comics, and I don't want to ever feel left out of the conversation, because you don't want to be that person. But it's definitely, I guess, a lot less frequent than I guess I would say now, because I mean, I buy Omnis, I buy Absolutes. Those are my favorite formats. So
yeah, plus it's good content for your channel as well. Like blood. What do they call it? The analysis that you did, the blood hunt, yeah, with the red band edition and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. Well, speaking of that, let's just quickly.
You know, can I also say big shout out to James for like being up at whatever hour it is for him?
I know. Well, I know, right? And not only that, but I put it in OmniDog's Discord that we were going live in 20 minutes. And straight away, James has put a link to the video in there. So, James, you are the man. So this is your channel?
That is my channel.
Dom of X.
Thank you for the subscription.
Yeah. I've been watching it lately, and I got to admit, I really enjoy your content. There's lots of good stuff here, and even you even have stuff here that I wouldn't have expected. Like, I can't see where it is right now, but you had your speech at school based on your. Why don't you tell people what that was?
Yes, so I took a public speaking class back last year because apparently my counselor said, in order for you to graduate, you need to take at least one public speaking course. And I went, okay, I guess I'll get that out of the way. I think it's under Domentary. I think if you look there, I believe it is. But my teacher, to my surprise, was incredibly enthusiastic about the material that she was talking about. And the next thing you know, she allows me to talk about topics that I'm passionate about. And I got to talk about pop culture with pretty much everyone there. So I based all of my 3 main speeches that semester around comic book characters or comic book stories. I got 100s or over on all of those speeches. And I'm very, very thankful that she gave me a platform to talk about nerdy stuff.
Yeah, it was quite funny. It got me a little jealous of my schooling that we never got to do anything like that.
Oh man, that stinks.
Where is it? Let's see.
I just realized that I probably should cut down on the long explanations because I think I do.
Whatever works for you. Here you go.
So that is me. That's me talking about House of X.
He is the person who actually changed the X-Men and revolutionized the way that we think about them today. In fact, a lot of the adaptations that we had of the X-Men are mostly based on his work. And as you can see, we all love the X-Men. And you've probably seen a lot of these characters pop up in movies or TV shows that have come out in the past couple of years. And as I said before, Jonathan Hickman, he's my favorite writer in 2019. He came over back to Marvel after writing Fantastic Four, The Avengers.
And if you want to see more of that, go hop over to Dom's channel and check it out.
That was seamless, dude. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So is Jonathan Hickman still your favorite writer?
He still is my favorite writer. I don't know if I'm as hyped for his work right now as I used to, even though I do have a cover on my show called Dom Reed's Ultimate Spider-Man. So of course I will check everything that he does out. But I always learn something or one thing or two whenever I read one of his comics. Like his most recent indie work, Decorum with Mike Huddleston, I was blown away by. It took me three rereads to get blown away by. Once I understood the gist of it, I was like, wow, I need more of this. But I do find him to be super cerebral, but that is partly why I think he's one of my favorite writers.
I may need a third read because I've done 2, and for the life of me,
yeah, sometimes you do get a little stuck. I will admit that. He isn't necessarily for everyone.
Even the first run, I was pause and read and pause and read. It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
For sure.
Yeah.
Is it just the one hardcover? Because I noticed that
it's
I
just
actually own it. Okay, because I haven't actually read it myself yet, so I'll have to give it a go. Here's Ryan. If Hickman ever came to DC, what would you want to see him write? That's a great question, Ryan.
That's an epic question. You know, Ultimate Spider-Man is really the first time we've gotten to see Hickman in a capacity write a story that's only centered around one character, because he usually is a team guy. He's usually the guy who is writing an ensemble even though most of his indies lend more to a solo character than they do a team, which I find fascinating. If he were to write something at DC, probably would just give out the straight answer and say Legion of Superheroes. But my heart wants me for him to write an Aquaman book that is concerning all the different kingdoms that we sort of never got to see at the tail end of Jeff Johns' Aquaman that he teased with the Rise or War of the Seven Kingdoms. I don't think we got a chance to see that because he left the book a little bit early. But I would like to see a spin with him on Aquaman. I think that would be a very, very interesting read.
Yeah, I think really, if you pick anything, it's going to be an interesting read. I'm actually, as much as I'm loving Ultimate Spider-Man, I'm actually a little annoyed that he's not writing the Spider-Man, because I think that'd just be great. Like, Spider-Man's my favorite, and I haven't legitimately loved Spider-Man in a long time. So I'm dying for a writer to take it over, where I look forward to reading it again every month, as opposed to just because it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So
go ahead, man.
No, please.
Yeah, no, I find Spider-Man so interesting because I think the fandom has been incredibly split since the higher up decision to remove Peter from MJ, which has some fans upset, and then pushing back some years on continuity, which is how we got to Brand New Day, right?
Yeah.
And we're getting, I'm surprised because we've been getting all of these omnibuses. Like, they finished out Spencer's in a really, really quick amount of time, and I'm sure that we'll get to see Zeb Wells soon with the inclusion of his Brand New Day issues and then his 60 issue run of ASM. So I don't doubt that we'll get that. But I do find where 616 Peter has been interesting, because it does seem like a lot of the stories with him have been more critically well received by the public in stuff that isn't in 616. So that is what I find very fascinated by.
Well, it's funny you say that, because with Omar's recent review on the Brand New Day Omni, when you get, because I know you're still a young man, but when you get older, not to sound arrogant in any kind of way, but when you get older, you forget how much time has passed, and you forget how like, to me, Brand New Day was just the other day, for example. And when Omar does a review and gives you all the facts, you're like, geez, this was a long time ago, actually. This is over 10 years now. I was watching it and I realized that I don't actually think I've legitimately loved Spider-Man ever since then, just like you said. And it wasn't a conscious decision. I haven't sat there and said, I'm so angry at this, I'm going to hold on to it and be hateful towards it. I was annoyed at the time, but I still want to enjoy Spider-Man. So you try to get over it and you move on. And they retconned a few things, like Sins Past and a few things like that, which I'm very appreciative of. But if I'm being honest, looking at myself in the mirror and going, when was the last time you really loved Spider-Man? It was before Brand New Day. And yeah, so I don't know what it is. I mean, yeah, there's him not being with Mary Jane. That's one thing. But there's only so much that can...
There's only so much that can do. And even then, like, I think that gets back to the bits and down of fandom that sometimes I think you can get a little bit toxic, right? Where you can only see, like, it's one character with one person. I think the reality is, like, you read a lot of that Stan Lee stuff. I mean, I read over 250 issues of Spider-Man for my final project for the public speaking class. And a part of the magic of the Stan Lee run is the soap opera bits of it. It's like, okay, you want to see him get pulled along by all of these different people, no matter who they are or wherever they're coming from, right? Whether it's Gwen, MJ, Betty, like, they're all completely different people, and you just wanted to see, like, okay, like, I was more invested in the social aspect of Peter rather than him fighting Green Goblin for the second or third time, rather than him getting against Dr. Octopus for the second or third time. Yeah. And I don't think we have all of those social bits in newer Spider-Man, where it's more so superhero focused, and I like him fighting against crime. Like, don't get me wrong, I mean, that's the appeal of a superhero book, but part of the magic of those issues was that you got the 50-50 balance of he gets to fight a guy, and then he also gets to have life drama with him.
Yeah. See, I've always been a huge fan of the Clone Saga, and it's because, to cut a long story short, Ben Reilly really taught me about how to be a real hero and a real friend and yada, yada, yada. And one of the things that I loved about Spider-Man with Mary Jane is that it made me, as cheesy as it sounds, made me believe in love and all that romantic sort of things about it. So with him splitting away and then never really being happy, it's different. You know, it's not what I was led to believe Spider-Man should be. But anyway, moving on. Anemic condition. How did that start for you, mate?
Oh, absolutely. So back in middle of February, I was just watching some of like Omar's, Saturday streams. It seemed like he had just gotten a bit like, I don't know, like spinning and running the wheel too much. Where I feel like he kind of it felt like he needed a break. And then a buddy of mine, his name is Pure Lunacy. He's Justin Wilson on the YouTube shows, and he's a moderator on his channel. He reached out to me and said, "Hey, Omar just said he needs an intern." And he pulled a clip from a Saturday stream, and he gave me all of his contact information. So I hit up Omar, and it was actually originally just supposed to be, can I show up on those Marvel preview streams that you do with Jess and Lars and Peter from Crushing Crisis, who I'd known for the last 5-6 years. And he said, yeah, I'd be happy to have you on the panel. And that's partly because of my work with comic releases, but that's something we can get to later. But then it evolved to like, I emailed him the next week, and he said, I said, hey, would you be interested in me being your intern, and I can work for you and this and that? And he said, yeah, we'll keep in touch. And we got a little bit closer since then. And he, I guess, not only figured out like I could, do graphic design, I could make all these different things and whatnot. It eventually became a really, really good friendship and bond between the both of us, where it's gotten to be a lot closer than I originally anticipated, because I thought it was just going to be like, hey, this is going to be business. But Omar has turned out to be someone I would call a mentor figure and someone I would call a really good friend. And now it's gotten to the point where it's like, I'm asking him for life advice. I'm asking him for, certain things on that. And I'm having a big announcement on my channel, partly with something that he and I have been sort of working on for the last couple of months. And it's all culminating to this. So I'm really very happy for Justin sending me that email or sending me that text like, hey, Omar's looking for an intern. But I'm also really happy and very content with what it's definitely become. Definitely would not be here without Omar.
Yeah, good on you.
And it's very evident as to the recent contents on NEME that your involvement has made it much more interesting to watch. And it's not to say that it wasn't before, but no, now it's more chock full of things to get excited about. Things.
No, it was boring before Dom. It was a boring show.
Always, yeah, but it's that one step higher.
Oh, thank you, Sharif, for that. No, it's again, like, it wasn't something that I really imagined that I would be doing in my spare time, because, well, I just to be short, like I have a big life that isn't sort of comic book related. Like, I play basketball. Like, I'm on a basketball league now with my dad, where we play against other Filipinos, which is big for me. And I do a whole bunch of other things outside too. But as far as content creation is concerned, again, like, it's something that I never really imagined, because I've always been watching Omar for like the last 3-4 years. If there was a collected edition that was coming out, I go to his channel first. Like, it's no question.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, just to get the appreciation from a lot of folks has been a really big blessing for me. I wake up every day just to be like, hey, it's, you know what? I'm alive. Like, that to me is already a blessing in and of itself, because the opposite is not true, right? Like, I'm not in the grave somewhere where I can't enjoy the things that are on this planet. So just to be able to wake up and read a comic book is already pretty humbling in and of itself, because I could be in a completely different situation that I am right now.
Wow, that was some good words there, Dom. I really liked that. Yeah, and I could totally see everything you've said about Omar, because one thing that we here at AussieVerse have been really appreciative of, and myself personally, is, you know, when you reach out to people on social media, you get different, you know, reactions and different receptions and things. And one thing that I was always impressed with Omar was, not only was he friendly from day one, but he wasn't just being polite just for the sakes of being polite to get more views or to get people watching. It was just being genuine. And I would reach out to him and talk to him about a few things every now and then. And he would come on the show. Well, he's been on maybe 2 or 3 times. And all of that he never had to do. So yeah, I was really impressed with that, because believe me, people don't see the rejections that you get with all the people that you do reach out to with having your own show. They only see the people that you do have on. And yeah, I was really impressed with how much time Omar did take out of his schedule and come on here. So that's really props to him. We've even had Melanie on once before, and I think Melanie's an absolute freaking sweetheart. I just absolutely love that woman. Yeah. So yeah, good on you, mate. Comic releases. What is it? Tell us what it is.
So comicreleases.com, like I guess I've been promoting on Omar's channel for the last year, even though he's known about it for the last 4. We are the #1 source for up-to-date information on your omnibuses, your hardcovers, your absolutes, your slipcases, whatever it may be. This is the brainchild, honestly, of Webhead, who has run the website for as long as it's been up, since 2020. But I got to, like I said earlier, I got to join him in 2021, a couple of months after he launched it and after I met him. And when my friendship sort of blossomed with him, it also turned into a partnership with continuing to push out this website as much as possible, because I believe that we have the #1 information. If you want to know when a comic book is coming out, we have the thing in the collected editions tab for it. If you go up to the top and you just click all upcoming, we have every single list that you could think of. And not only that, we have links to all of the major US retailers, as well as Walt's Comic Shop. So we have, CGN, IST, OPB, Amazon, and Walt's Comic Shop for all the people who are in the EU trying to find their books. All of them are categorized, and all of them have the contents listed, including ISBN number, whatever the SKU code is from the distributor, and what they collect every issue.
Wow.
That is a lot of information available on.
This looks like a huge undertaking.
We also do get information from the major comic book publishers, such as, again, Marvel and DC, but also the bigger independent comics publishers such as Boom and Image. And we all have it consolidated here. Every single month, I always update them whenever I get the chance to put them out in the format. So everything that you see on Omar's videos for the Marvel stuff, it's all put out once that's lifted from embargo. Same with DC, same with everything.
Okay. Well, this is pretty cool. I hadn't actually checked this out before, to be honest.
You got a chance to check it out now, and you have all the omnibuses from Marvel that are coming out with it too. So,
yeah, man. All right, I'm going to save that.
And you've got a lot of the publishers' solicitations on this site. Do you actually reach out or have anyone from?
No, they send it to us. They send it to us every month, and then we have to push them in together so that we can lay them out for everyone else to see. But I think the coolest thing about our website is that if you join our Patreon, which is only for, I don't know what it is in Aussie dollars, but it is only for $2 a month. We do have some Aussie people who are subscribed as well. You can make your own watch list. So if you're tracking future Marvel releases or DC releases, like for example, all the DC books that are dropping, which are already on the site, you can have your own watch list and track them yourself. You can also put in the amount of money that you spent on the book, where you bought it from, make all those cool notes and separate it out of yourself. So I think that is the proudest thing that we have for the site.
Wow. Okay. Now you're talking. Ilan, mate, I'm hoping he cops on one day. This guy likes sharing music with me, and it's very, very chill, cool music. Sharif, when you rocked up today while we were waiting for Dom, and you heard that music that I was listening to, that was from this gentleman, Ilan.
I love Elon. I love Elon.
Yeah, very, very cool guy. All right, so do you actually so in Australia here, there's let me rephrase that. There is a huge community out there that don't really care about collected editions. It's all about the single issues. It's all about the Slab Comics. It's all about the number ones, the first appearances, all the flipping and the money making and all that sort of jazz. So do you own anything that you consider keys, values? Are you into any of that? Do you not care about any of that? Where's your mind with all of that sort of part of the comic world?
So I have one Slab comic, but I kid you not, and I got into a story with this right after I explain it. The one Slab comic that I have is the Patrick Gleason cover of the Amazing Spider. You know how it's all like the webs? Yeah. I have a 9.8 of that, and the only reason I have that is because that was a Christmas gift that was given to me by a customer while I was working at the comic shop.
Wow.
I guess in our conversations, I told him because Patrick Gleason is my favorite artist. I wish that he'd draw more than just some fill-in arcs for Spider-Man, which just seemed that just the only thing that Marvel has him signed up for. But it is what it is. I'll take what I can get. But that same gentleman, earlier in the year, I had tried to talk him into buying the Doomsday Clock Absolute, because I looked at it. It was gorgeous. We had 2 of them on the shelf. We're trying to sell to other customers. And then I saw my comic book store owner grab one from the shelf and put it in his office. I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on here. Maybe it was someone called in from the phone and ordered there. And then I go home early that day because it was my dad's birthday. We're going out to celebrate. And kid you not, my comic store owner comes out of his office and says, "Hey, this guy just bought you an Absolute edition for free." And I went, so did I convince him to do something? I have no idea what happened. It's on the bottom of my shelf now, but I'll always be grateful for that gift. And of course, the 9.8 ASM issue. But he also gave me a couple of Key Thor issues, apparently, for Christmas as well, along with a copy of Demon in a Bottle by David Michelinie. For Iron Man. I know. I don't know what I did. I legitimately still don't know to this day. But I will always thank him for the love and appreciation that he's given me while I worked at the shop.
That is awesome.
Guess you were, whatever you're doing something right.
I hope so, or you think so. I'm just, when I worked at the comic shop, it was, so my goal in life, at least for comics anyways, has always been twofold. It's to get more people to read comics, and it's for people to read more comics. And if I'm not doing that by the end of the day, I'm doing something wrong. So my prerogative has always been, how can I get more people to read in a country where 4 out of 5 people don't? Which is, it's a pretty fascinating thing to me. But I think readership, at least, on my level now, because my generation and the people under me, They're sort of evolving into we get all of our information from TikTok and 10-second reels. Whether there is misinformation there or not, that doesn't matter. As long as it makes them happy, it keeps them fulfilled and satisfied. But I hope that at least at some point in the future, we can sort of move past from that and actually read the bloody things. I mean, that's why I love comics for the most part, right? It's this double folded pieces of art where you not only get a great script, but you also get amazing illustrations along with it. And I hope maybe at some point, I can tell more people this is why this is awesome. And hopefully, like with me being on Omar's channel, maybe someone who is my age or who is younger says, hey, that person reads comics. Why can't I be more like that person? And sort of get through the osmosis between those two parts.
Wow. I like a lot of the ways you
I think for me, somewhere along the line, I'm not reading as fast as I'm getting the books. But that's a problem for another day. Do you kind of face that situation where you feel like there's so much material out there that's available for consumption, but it's just too little time?
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, I'm still in college. I would like to get a break at some point. Probably when I get a job, but I've already admitted to myself that with the over 50,000 books or series or whatever that have both been published by the big two, and that's just the big two, I'm never going to get around to everything. I think I've already come to grips with that point. But what I can say is that, okay, that doesn't mean that I still can't hit the classics. That doesn't mean that I still can't have a good conversation with someone, even if I personally haven't read the material or would like to. Because I think the fascinating thing about comics is that there is literally something for everyone. And I think that's especially true now. With not only the current material that we have coming out from each publisher, but also the backlog for every single one, there is something for you out there. I don't know what that is or what that looks like, but there is something that I think will make every single person happy with whatever was published, whatever genres come out. I mean, that's just part of admittance in me. Nothing is I will admit, there have been comic books that I did not like or that I was not as high on as others. That doesn't mean that I still can't enjoy something out of it. And that doesn't also mean that I can't have a good conversation with someone about it, even if I didn't like it or if it didn't hit with me as well as it did with someone else. So it's coming from that notion of, hey, okay, I may not like the writing, but do I like the art? Do I like the colors? Do I like the way that they put the words on the page? There's always something I think to enjoy in every comic book, and I think that if we nail ourselves down to that instead of trashing a book, we can get a lot of good conversations out of those.
And coming off that, what would be a hot take that an acclaimed book that a lot of people like, but you just don't?
I feel like I have a lot of those sitting in my head, but I can't. I think the most recent books, I know that Omar and all of the folks like it over on his channel, but what I've read of Taylor Nightwing, I just don't care as much as others would. And I think part of it comes, for me, Dick Grayson is one of my favorite characters. I have 3 Nightwing shirts. I have a regular one. I got one from an amusement park. And I have one that I got from Las Vegas that I will always wear on Halloween or Christmas if it's too cold. But I think the problem with Nightwing is that he just isn't interesting enough on his own counterpart, and his villains aren't interesting enough to hold a book, which is actually why I'm very surprised that he's lasted as long as he has. I think almost 30 years now with a solo title. To be able to run amok in Bloodhaven with Blockbuster, who was essentially DC's Kingpin, and a lot of other characters. I've always found him more interesting in a Titan setting, which is why when people ask me what's your favorite Nightwing book, I always say Wolfman Perez Teen Titans, because that to me is the embodiment of not only what makes Dick Grayson a great character, where he also blossoms. It's with other people. It's with him leading a team and being able to stand out on his own in that way, but also being able to function and coordinate. And I think that's probably my hottest take, at least recently. That's come about. What I've read of Taylor just hasn't struck me as well, even though the art is phenomenal. I love Bruno Redondo. It's just, that's just okay for me.
Yeah, it's funny because I've been reading comics since I was 9, so that's over 30 years, 35 years now. And when comics have dominated so much of my life, I feel like I know so much about comics. And when you grow up, before it was like now, when I was growing up, it was really a nerdy thing that nobody understood. And it was very, very rare that you'd ever meet anybody that would like comics as well. That I was always the comic book guy that people would ever ask a question to, right? And watching Omar and NEME Condition and your gang for the last, I don't know how long, it fascinates me how much I don't know about comics, because I've always felt like I do know so much about comics, and I'm this and I'm that, and I know but there's so much that I don't know. There's so much that I haven't read, and it always surprises me. One thing that's always fascinated me as well that I've never bothered to look into myself to figure it out. I haven't had the conversation with Omar to figure it out. It's just one of those things that one day I'll talk to him about. But when a comic gets brought up that I don't know about, sometimes it will lead you down a well and you'll go, okay, I want to know more about that. Or if a book gets mentioned that you have heard for years, like, for example, Promethea, that's coming out soon, right? I've heard of that title. I've never read that title. I don't know anything about that title, but I do know that it's very well received and it goes on the secondhand market for very expensive, which is why the reprint is really people are waiting for it. So that's easy. But then there are other ones that he'll bring up that I sit there and I go, hang on, there's something I'm missing here. And the biggest example that I can give of that is his fascination with Scrooge McDuck. Now, I don't get it, right? And the reason why I don't get it is because, at least growing up in Australia, at least myself growing up in Australia, the only time we ever had with Scrooge McDuck was the show DuckTales, right? That would be on every day after school, and I would watch that. And I got to admit, I loved DuckTales. I thought it was a great show. I really, really dug it. But then you grow up and life happens and yada, yada, yada. And as far as my memory goes, Scrooge McDuck lives on that show, DuckTales. And that's it. There is nothing more past that. Fast forward 20 years later, you're watching Omar and he's going on about how much he loves Scrooge McDuck and all this history with the comics and Don Rosa and all these stories. And I'm sitting there going, hang on. First of all, I just assumed that everything to do with Disney, when it comes to those classic Disney characters, I thought would be just for children, all those comics. I didn't realize that people as adults would actually still love those and dig them. And then there was all this other history. And it's really made me want to go down this well of what is the fascination with the ducks and these guys, because they have such a love with them and I don't know what it's about. Obviously now Marvel have just done their Infinity Dime, so I can go check that out for easy access. There was another book that came out about a year or two ago that I remember Omar did a review on. That's like a $300 book with like a little gold.
Yep. You know what? We sold. That's the only reason I know anything about Scrooge McDuck. Will not only be through cultural osmosis, but also someone at our comic shop. He's the dad of someone who I worked with. He came over to the shop and he was like, "Hey, do you have my super big book with the coin?" I was like, "What super big book?" And then my manager, not my comic store owner, but my manager, Mike, he pulls out this like super big box. I'm like, what is in that thing? I've never seen anything like it. And it's always in those moments where I'm blown away by it, because you think you know everything,
Yeah.
and then someone throws you a curveball where you either don't know who that is or don't know what that is. And then you go, okay, I guess it's time to go back to school again so I can learn some things.
Yeah.
Always.
Which is what I love about it, because there's just so much out there.
And especially with the new stuff that's coming out. Well, Bo and I were collected editions people with the new releases that's coming out. When the list is being gone through, it's oh, okay, I've heard of this, but I don't know what it is, and then suddenly I get another book in my want to buy list, and another book, and now it's the list is unbelievably so long, especially when solicitations are going up till May, June next year. So much good stuff are just coming out.
I know.
New stuff and reprinted stuff.
So
well,
what's
that's part of why we put up comic releases, you know, in the first place to begin with. I think the coolest thing about our site is that we have filters specifically in your cases where, okay, if you don't want to look up every single book, you can filter it by publisher, you can filter it by book type, you can filter it by price. So you don't have to go in there and say, oh man, I'm looking at this like super big spreadsheet, I'm super overwhelmed by it and I can't figure out what to buy. But I think that's in the case of like, I think that's something that Omar and even myself are proud of just being able to not only like know what's coming out and what's being collected in these, but also be able to be transparent with the public so that they don't just blind buy a book based on FOMO or just hearsay, like understandably so, Sharif, because I have a friend of mine in Malaysia who acts exactly the same way you do, who feels exactly the same way you do.
Yeah.
But you know, I think part of it as being influencers, I think Bo, I think you very much know about this, is like the whole case of we never want to peer pressure into buy or getting someone to buy a book just because, you know, you feel obligated that you need to tell them about it and then you need to go buy it. No, you always want to buy a book because the consumer has to be interested in the book, at least at some point, that isn't through external factors only, because that only sets them up, I think, for a pitfall if, say, like they don't like the book as much as we do, or if it just doesn't meet their expectations. I think the overall thing that we have to focus on is being as informative as possible with what we can give them and say like, oh, this book is about this, it's about this character, this is what the story is about, or something like that, without getting into spoilers. I think that's the most, I think that's the best that we can do. It's being able to just give them the facts outright and then letting them come to a conclusion, because I think, yeah, we should give our fellow peers credit and tell them we're smart. Because yeah, I mean, we're all smart, right? Or we hope we are. But yeah, that is I think that is the case in for that. Don't get hit with the FOMO, because that is the last place on earth you want to be.
So what's your storage situation like? I ask that because I'm with my partner and I'm allowed this one room, right? And it's getting so full that I am constantly, for the last year now, going through my old trades and selling things to be able to make room. And everybody's life, everybody's situation is different. You might be able to have things in your whole house. You might only be allowed one room, like myself. You might only want a few bookshelves. What's your personal storage situation?
So as someone who still lives with his parents, again, because I'm still in college, and they, as long as they are allowed to keep me under roof, the Filipino golden rule actually is that until you are married, you are allowed in your parents' home for as long as they please. So I'm very thankful for my mom and dad for that, because I would not be wanting to go to master school on my own and pay thousands of dollars for tuition on myself while like trying to uphold a job. That is the last place I think I want to be at, unless, you know, the job pays well, but that's a different story. I only have the one room to myself. It is spacious enough, and part of the we moved during COVID. Real quick story, and part of the pitch was you get your own. Not only you get your own room that isn't connected to your younger brother's, you also get a bathroom along with it. So it's like living in this nice mini apartment, sort of separate from the entire house. Dad sometimes comes in and helps me clean the bathroom, because I will admit I do have some. He's a much better handmaid than I am. But what I will say is that it has lended itself to me getting a decent amount of space. I mean, I right now am only collecting the stuff that I want to keep in, that A, I know I'll reread, or B, that it's like close and dear to my heart. You know, like all the Daredevil runs, which all of those somehow play a key part in my heart. They're all in my room. I have a lot of Batman. I have all of Jonathan Hickman's oversized hardcovers. I think that's the proudest part of my collection. But it is just the one room. And as that, I've only been lended so much space, and it stinks now too, because I mean, I have a thing with again, I'm going to be announcing something on my channel, but like it's you know, I wish I had a house, but as of right now, I don't have a full-time job. I'm still studying so that I can get that full-time job. And hopefully at that point, I will have not only one, but a couple of rooms where I can nerd and geek out. So I'm not just limited to the one.
So I heard you say you got a little brother. So what's your little brother and your parents' view on your comic love and your comic streaming and things like that?
So they understand that, like, yeah, I'm a weird nerd with all this stuff, but I think my parents have known that for like, since I was like 0. You know, I like I said, I've watched a lot of superhero stuff as a kid. My brother isn't into that stuff as much. He's a lot more of the jock type, I guess I would say. But he watches all the movies with me, because we do have family nights out where like it's an MCU movie. With the exception of Deadpool and Wolverine, because that was rated R. He's not of that age yet. Maybe when I even told my mom, like, because she asked me, like, because she knew I watched it with a couple of friends, like, hey, how was the Deadpool movie? And I went, I don't know if you'd like it, because you usually don't lend yourself to comedic violence and in that sort of way. My mom's much more of a soap opera person. But we do have family nights out where we do watch whatever the most recent superhero movie is, and we all have a fun time with it. But they're definitely not as big as I am into it, but they do know that. And they also like ask me, like my dad is like asked me a billion questions about Deadpool after the movie dropped. So you know they know, but we have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. What's your stance on digital comics? Because I know Omar's not a fan. I've tried to. I think I may have convinced him just the other day with a comment that I put on one of his live streams, where he's finally understood why they're good for some people. And I gave him an argument where I said, look, I'm never going to deny that physical comics are the best, right? At least in my opinion, because you just can't deny that. However, when you have a collection as big as I do, and you want to try to minimize it, and I don't know if I've gone over with you, Dom, how expensive comics are here in Australia.
They are. I have a friend in Australia who only gets trade paperbacks, because he's told me of all of the distributing issues as well as like the inflated prices. I went, okay, I'm not going to convince you to get an Omni anymore. Don't worry about me on that.
Yeah. Especially in the last year and a half, things have just skyrocketed for I don't know why, but it's absolutely horrible. So I finally went and subscribed to Marvel Unlimited. So for the last year, I said to myself, that's it. I am no longer buying new trades unless it's something absolutely magical that I love, which hasn't been many. So that way I can continue to buy my omnibuses and hardcovers, and I can stay up to date with all of my new comics. And one thing that I discovered is when you've got bad eyesight like I do, the one thing that I have just found a godsend that has nearly ruined physical comics for me. Nothing will ever do that. Nothing will ever do that. But this feature on digital comics is so good that I wish I could almost have telescopic vision with my eyeballs, where it zooms in panel to panel, and I do not miss anything. Where I've had plenty of conversations with Sharif or any of my other comic friends, and they've said, "Did you notice this in this comic? Did you notice this in this panel?" And I haven't noticed it. I've just read it and flown right past it. However, on digital comics, when you can go into every single panel zoomed in, I'm not missing anything. And I'm a lot more invested and a lot more, I don't know, it's a lot better for people like myself anyway.
Mhm.
So have you ever tried them, and what's your opinion of them?
So as a college student, I have not had the pleasure of buying some comics that I would have loved to have otherwise. I know that we're in a weird spot because the industry has so many weird, like, gaping holes. Like, for example, most digital comics are owned by Amazon. I know that, like, freaks some people out because it is essentially a monopoly. If you want to, like, actually own it, you have to go through Jeff Bezos, which I get isn't everyone's cup of tea. But I do think it is a positive in the fact that it does make a lot of these books a lot more accessible to people who may not have a comic store in their region. Say if you are in a secluded part of the world and maybe the only way you can read these is through Marvel Unlimited. I don't really have an issue with if it gets more people in the comics. I don't really have any beef with it because I don't think that this physical hobby is going to die out. My understanding from all the people that I've talked to, both in the industry and also all of the people that I know who, like, have connections there, physical copies are the reason to why books continue selling. It's not through digital because digital only has, like, a small handful in terms of, like, the gigantic space and profit margins, or whatever you want to call them. That's that the reason why they keep coming out is because of that. I don't think that should lend itself in for comic people, whether you're the consumer, whether you are the distributor publisher, for you to withhold digital comics in that way, right? I mean, part of the reason why I like Marvel singles is because they give us digital codes all the time. I can't bring an omnibus with me if I'm on vacation, but you know what I can bring? I can bring my tablet. I can bring whatever that is with me, and I can read at my hotel or someone's house that I'm staying at. I can read that without having to bring this behemoth and everyone asking me, like, what on earth are you reading? Are you reading an encyclopedia? I literally had a cousin 2 years ago. I brought over a Marvel Omni. I think it was Avengers. It was Avengers, and it was like, what on earth is that? Is that like an Avengers, like A through Z, like all these characters are? I'm like, no. It's like an actual comic, and I had to explain what an omnibus was. I think for many reasons it is a positive, like for the stuff that you not only suggested, Bo, but also in terms of accessibility. I know that, again, it's not everyone's cup of tea. I mean, it's not my first one. I mean, I'd rather be holding the physical thing too, which is why I've always strayed away from digital textbooks whenever I've had the opportunity to. But that doesn't mean that it has to be for everyone, right? Like, if we want to continue to grow the fandom, I think digital comics do have their foothold at some places.
Good answer. Alan says, I have set a little rule where I have to read at least the first volume digitally before I purchase a series. That's a great idea, actually. I can also get a lot of comics digitally through the library. Yeah. That's actually, that's a really good point.
To sort of add to that point as well, whenever we put money into one of these super big books, whether it's an omnibus, absolute, whatever you want to call it, you are spending over, in your case, like over $100 plus on one book. That's not small. That takes time out of your life. And if you don't love everything in there, then you lost some parts of your money in the case of that. I know that, like, I have a lot of omnibuses on my shelf, but I haven't loved everything that I've read. And you don't want, let's just say, like, you only have money for the one Omni. if you don't love that one Omni, what are you going to do with it? Like, not all comic shops have a return policy. In fact, most of the retailers here, like, once you open it, there's no damage or whatever in the book, like, you're either going to get hit with restocking fees or they're not going to accept that thing back, right? And so you always sort of, there's nothing wrong with being careful of, like, oh, like, go on Marvel Unlimited or go on DC Universe Infinite, read one or two trades. If you love it, get that thing on your shelf and read the rest. There's nothing wrong with being careful either. I think that's one thing we sort of lend ourselves to when we buy these things, is like, we're sometimes being a bit too careless of, maybe we don't know what's like everything that's in the Omni, and then we read it and we're like, man, I didn't like that. I didn't love that all that much. But I think that's another reason in case to why these things should be allowed to be a thing.
I think the Australian environment, I'd say, doesn't have the capacity as the US had, where the libraries would offer digital comics through what I've heard, Hoopla and maybe one or two other platforms. I don't think that we've got anything equivalent here. So, that first taste would just be through Marvel Unlimited or DC Infinite. Otherwise,
I haven't been able to read DC in years because I couldn't afford it. I could only afford Marvel with the all the single issues and the trades and the omnibuses. Where now, because I've got Marvel Unlimited, I've also recently got DC Infinite, and now I'm being able to read DC as well. So yeah, for me it works. And
you know what the crazy part is about that, Beau? DC Universe Unlimited, or Infinite, whatever they want to call it, was not available in all countries when they said that they would back. I remember when it first launched in 2018, 2019. Part of the reason that it did so well, I guess back in those days, was not only you were getting the comics content, they had Universe Originals on there, like the Titans live action show, Doom Patrol, Swamp Thing. Oh man, I really wish that Swamp Thing series got past one season.
Yeah.
So you got the bits of, case of your money, but the thing is that was only available in the United States. I remember someone on Reddit in 2020 going to a DC panel in a Comic-Con at Canada, and he asked them, are you guys going to go live with your subscription at all so we can read comics here digitally with your service? The person told him, yeah, we're planning to go live later this month. It took them 2 years from that point to make it go international, which is a pretty sad thing, honestly.
Yeah. Wow, it's shocking, isn't it? I don't understand the way DC do things. Like, we always have a little jabs at them with the way they promote their own material, how they let the public know what books they're selling. It really just makes no sense. We could sit here for the next hour complaining and bitching about it, which we won't. But I'm just saying, it's fascinating, the mindset of that company. I just do not get it at all.
Because Marvel, I think, has been a lot more transparent, and part of it, yes, is working with Omar in order to let us know, like, oh, these are the big books that are coming out as far as collected editions are concerned. Please go buy them. I will say that since James Gunn has got hired as DC Studios CEO, it looks like they have at least righted the ship somewhat. With I cannot complain about most of the books that got put on that Idlewise catalog. I can't. I remember sifting through that and I went, man. Well, not only did, yes, it helped me get to 1,000+ subscribers, but it also made me realize, okay, someone at the top realized that these were books that needed to either be printed out or that they finally needed to be pushed. But I still think the thing is, even, yes, through all that, through the weird promotion, and even with James Gunn even telling the public, hey, these are the 10 books that are going to be based on the movies and the TV shows that we come out. Those volume ones have all gone out of stock. They've been reprinted, or in some cases, the Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, getting a deluxe, partly because of James Gunn's, thanks and praises and promotion. I still do think that DC can round up a bit in those parts with, again, the transparency and letting the actual public know, like, these are the books that we want to promote to you guys. This is why. Let's go and sell them out. And it's like, I'm with all the DC All-In stuff that's going to be coming later this year in October, with Mark Waid returning the Justice League, Ram V on New Gods and stuff like that makes me excited. It's actually part of why I think DC Comics-wise is going to be a lot more interesting than Marvel now, at least in terms of like the current continuity and whatever. I do think the company can still work out the bits and kinks of promotion and being at sort of like a lower level where they can get to us instead of we have to look on an Idlewise catalog to get all our information from.
Man, I read that Woman of Tomorrow when I first got DC Infinite. It was one of the first DC books that I read. And I was so blown away by that book, man. I can't believe how much I loved that book. I expected Supergirl, because I haven't read heaps of Supergirl, but every Supergirl that I've read has been very similar sort of feel. Different writing, of course, different art. But this book, oh man, like I actually want to get that deluxe myself and have that on my shelf. I just loved it so much.
Yeah, that was a book that I always will read a Tom King book after it's finished. Like sometimes, like I'll sample it out just to see, like, oh. But most of the time, when I read a Tom King book, I'm like, oh, this looks really good. And then I said, you know what? I'll wait for the book to finish so I can get a final verdict on it, because I think most of his books lend to itself like that, anyways. And when I finally got to read the entire deluxe for the first time, and now I'm on a second read through just to see if it still hits, I'm still blown away by it, man. Like, there are no good enough words that I can give for the mastercraft of the story and the bits and pieces of it flowing through. So kudos to him, and also Bilquis Evely for the amazing art and pencils, and Matt Lopez on the colors. Like, I was blown away by that title.
I will tell you though, I think the benefit that I've only very, very recently tried to put a positive spin on how expensive comics are here is I was always up to date with my pre-orders. And anytime there was a new omnibus, I knew when it was coming, as most of us do, and you pre-order it, you get it, add it to the shelf. Where this year, it's the first time I'm ever really, really behind. Now you get to curate your collection a little bit more, and I've learned how to not be so. What's the plural of FOMO? Where I've learned how not to be FOMistic. Thank you. I've learned how to do that, and I try to be a more like Sharif, where I'll buy, for example, Dark Knights of Steel, the hardcover, book 1 and 2. And I put them on my shelf. And Sharif turns around to me and goes, "Why did you get that?" And I go, "Because I love Elseworlds. And I've always loved Elseworlds, even if I'm not a DC guy." And he goes, "Yeah, but they're just going to release that in a deluxe edition. Why don't you wait for that?" And I'm like, "But do you know? Or do you just think they are?" And he goes, "No, they are." And I'm like, "But you don't know." And he goes, "No, I do know. They will." And I'm like, "You don't work at DC. You don't know. So stop being a smart ass and tell me what could possibly be coming out, because at least I've got the books now on my shelf." And what happens? He's freaking right every time. And then you'll announce the deluxe edition. And I'm like, God damn it. Like, why didn't I ever listen to this guy? So I'm starting to. So I guess that's my way of apologizing to you, Sharif. And
in his own very weird and twisted way. Arya, good morning. He's one of my best buds, man. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah. Thanks for joining. But do you ever get that? Do you ever buy something and think, I wish I waited for the better version? Or does that never happen to you?
Oh, that's me and Mr. Miracle. Mr. Miracle by Tom King. I got the deluxe for sale for $8. And the next thing you know,
absolutely,
Tom, you got the solicits? I'm like, yeah, I got the solicits. Yeah, wait, what? They're putting out an absolute. I throw my phone, go on my bed, cry for 5 minutes, and then I get back to life.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I feel like that's happened to me too many times, though, where maybe sometimes it's a deluxe hardcover, and then an absolute's about to drop, and I'm like, why didn't I just wait for this? This actually this was my thing with All-Star Superman. All-Star Superman got a deluxe edition.
Yeah.
And push comes to shove, of course, there's a 2024 printing
Absolutely.
of the absolute. I will say, though, shout out to a person. The person did get me to find one of the older prints completely brand new. So I got it like all straight. But I was still super upset that I spent more money than I would like to on the deluxe edition. The other book that I would say happened to me with that was the where the Daredevil by Zdarsky oversized hardcovers. I picked that up in singles. I love that run. It's one of my favorite. I think I would probably have in my top 3 if you had to put a gun to my head and say which are your favorite Daredevil stories. But my problem with that thingy was, Daredevil. Let me, what? I have it right here. This beast comes out, and I wish I didn't spend money on those hardcovers because they're not, finishing out with the last one. So sometimes it is a work. Sometimes these publishers do put you through loopholes because the one time that you think that you're getting the best format, I think this happens with DC more often than Marvel, because Marvel, I think they've sort of streamlined their energy, even if they do make questionable decisions sometimes, which publishers don't, right? I think, double dipping happens. It's just that how willing are we allowed to not only stretch our wallet, how willing are we allowed to stretch our feelings when we buy these?
Oh, that is so funny you say Black Mirror, Alan. That is another example of what Sharif did to me. I bought the hardcover, and he goes, "Why didn't you just get the deluxe?" And I'm like, "Because I only got it for like $20, and in these days when you can buy a hardcover for $20, you're gonna get it." And he's like, "Yeah, but the deluxe is coming."
And then Absolute is probably going to come in soon. You know what? Because Scott Snyder is back over at DC this October. There is no way on earth he is going to not get a re-edition of that Absolute. They have to. It is one of the greatest. It might be my favorite Dick Grayson story. It might be. I'm not saying that definitively.
It just might be.
It just might be.
So
my issue is slightly different. Well, I do custom binds, so with the Fattel, the 2 hardcovers, especially Volume 1, it's crazy. It's going for crazy prices right now. So what I decided, since the 5 trades are available, I'll get the 5 trades and then custom bind them into a hardcover. Once that's done, a few months down the road, what do you know? Fattel Compendium. It's collected in just one book. And then recently, Sex Criminals, I stripped all of the 6 trades, ready to send them to the bindery, and then Image comes out with a Sex Criminals compendium. But last week, the Sex Criminals Letter Daddies came out, so I've got one up for my edition on top of the compendium. But it's a good thing for the consumers now, especially with I see compendiums now are just making such a great footprint in the market, where everything's collected in one. Where you do, if you're not a fan of oversized just oversized books, standard size, all in one. And saying all in one, the new print from DC,
Well, again, I keep talking about the video that Dom was in today, the DC solicitations, and they made a good point in that one as well. I don't know what the price is like here in Australia, but in America anyway, if you don't want to spend the money on an omnibus and you see something like that Dark Knight's compendium that's coming out, and it's only $60, and it's got the same content as it does in an Omni, that's a fantastic reason to be getting compendiums. Personally, I actually don't mind them. I mean, we're always talking about hardcovers and how much we love them, and we do. But when I look at my shelf and I see the compendiums that I own, whether it be Spawn or Milestone or the Irredeemable and stuff like that, there's still books that I love, and I'm glad that I've got them. I mean, would I upgrade them to a hardcover if I could? Probably, but I'm still grateful that I've got them on my shelf, and they're still big, thick books that I didn't need to spend over $100 on.
Yeah, no, I think I've realized this with this hobby of collecting, and part of the reason to why, even though yes, I would like publishers to always publish big books all the time, I do understand from working at a shop and also interacting with other people that not only are some of these books unaffordable for some people, because these are behemoths. These are not $3.99 single issues that you can just pick up from your shop. These are investments that you actually have to say, I'm willing to spend over $100 on a book, and it's going to make me happy that I spent that 100, right? And if you do that for every book, that's not just one, right? You're doing this for tens, hundreds of books. You're going to be down a lot of money. And I think compendiums are sort of a way for someone goes in a comic shop, they're like, I want to see the Batman who laughs. I want to see Batman fight the dark multiverse with the Justice League. Go in the shop, you buy that compendium. That's saving so much money instead of getting all of those trade paperbacks, which there are 4 or 5 of, or the omnibus, which is $150 cover price. So, it's I think a good setting point for someone who might not want to spend $1 billion right away. And it's also a realization that these are not for everybody. Omnibuses are not for everybody. We're in such a niche hobby of a niche that sometimes I do think our echo chamber does get to a certain point where we're only focused on one thing. When again, like if we want more people reading comics, again, shouldn't we be making them more accessible instead of less accessible for the public? Not everyone is going to want to spend $100 immediately. So it's being able to figure out what that format is, like the DC Compact Edition line. I'm very happy that they came out with that, because those are some of the most iconic stories. You can go into a comic shop or whatever regular book retailer is, in our cases, only spend $10. That's a sell. Like, you want to keep going for more of that. We need more people reading comics. And even though, again, like sometimes we don't agree 100% with the publisher, we should be able to at least commend them for trying to get more people into a hobby that already is a little bit hard enough to get into anyways.
Yeah. Well said. Alan had a question here, seeing as you're the Nostradamus of DC, apparently.
They'll come out with an omnibus of it, Sharif, you know it.
Yeah, it's see, they've already had the box set, hardcover box set. It's to release all of that in deluxe. It's gonna be another set of investment, which I'm not gonna say DC might not do it. There's always a market for it, but for someone who already has it, it's gonna be I'd say yes. I'd say yes. They might test the water with just one. If it sells, the second one might come not so soon, but I don't know. Maybe I'd say just over a year. But personally, when I heard Riddler One Bad Day, and then how amazing that book was, plus all the other stuff that the other titles that came out, I just couldn't wait for DC to come with a proper collected edition. So I ended up making one.
Do you think the Tankaban format of manga is a reason it has grown in popularity among young readers?
Oh no, I have no doubts about that. As someone who actually has friends who are into manga, that is 100% the reasons why they're into it. It's a lot easier to go pick up a manga and pick it off the shelf and buy it because you're not straddled with a billion years of continuity.
Yeah.
That has often been the barrier that at least I have gotten from people my age and younger. As far as like, again, this is part of the reason to why I told you earlier, like they, my generation and younger focus more on the TikTok videos that give you 10 minutes or 10 seconds of satisfaction than they do a book. Even if they are being fed with misinformation, that still feels a lot more worthwhile because they don't have to have that prior knowledge of getting into whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it is, I know, again, it is the saddest way. That's why I can commend DC for those compact editions. Because it does seem like they are getting to audiences that, yes, it might not be for you and me where we already have our cool, big looking books, but they might be for that one person who might be on the line of whether they want to get into comics or manga or not. And maybe that's the last tipping point. Maybe it's for those people. And I know that, again, but like if we want to see comics continue along the lines, it's not just about like getting as much money of like out of the older generations that are already into comics. It's about being able to feed and share that love to people who are younger that'll continue on that line. If people like me can't get into comics, there's no real future set in for that. I think that is the one thing that I am actually partly scared of, is that we're not giving the love of whatever the thing is that we're enjoying enough to the younger people so that they can enjoy it too. And I know there's a weird generational gap and barrier between all of that as I'm talking about that to you guys, but I really do want a lot of Gen Zers, a lot of Gen Alpha people to be able to enjoy the stuff that we do so that we can assure ourselves that comics will continue for as long as they will. Because I think that trying to feed as much money out of the older generations that are already strapped in is a moot point, because, at some point we're either going to say like, hey, maybe it's time to stop reading comics for a while and take a break. Some of us, we move on with different hobbies. We need to be able to feed younger generations with that as well.
I'm liking this polite argument that's happening in the chat here. Let's take a look. We've got Omnis are overload for me, way too big to be a comfortable read. Not trying to pull a muscle to find out if Hulk is stronger than Thor when we already know that he is. And then we have the backwards to that. Real men read Omnis. And then back again, we have real men have pull lists. And I truly hope we never came to the mindset of TikTok-brained people. There's no real money in that venture. Captain Saro, I don't know what this means or what you're referring to. Oh, is that what that... That's why I don't know. I was going to say, Captain Saro is definitely not a troll, and I'm sitting there going, she's actually a good friend of mine. I'm going, this has got to mean something, but I wasn't sure what it was. I don't know anything about Pokemon, okay?
It's a Pokemon.
I want to know if what's your Desert Island comic? If you were stuck there and you had to bring one, what would it be?
Desert Island comic. There are a lot of good choices on my... trying to think of a good, hopeful story that I will always go back to. You know what? All-Star Superman. I have still revered that comic as the greatest limited series that DC has ever had. Because I think it not only nails down everything of what Superman should be as a character and what we should aspire to be, but it's also a fantastic story in and of itself. It also gives me that sense of hope and the longing for a better tomorrow. I think sometimes, or very, very recently, up until until Batman Superman came out by Wade, the world's finest, the public has definitely had a infatuation with Superman turning and twisting evil, when I would argue that he's much more of a righteous and selfless person than Batman is. Because we sort of want to see that weird, like, Goliath versus like David versus Goliath, right? Like, oh, like man amongst gods, and but I think the thing with Superman, what makes him so special is that he is the perfect definition of what an iconic superhero should be. And I think All-Star Superman nails it to a T, which is why it is my Desert Island reread.
Man, I so agree with that 100%. My argument has always been with Superman that he's so OP, which is why people don't like him, that for him to be able to fit in with humanity is such a challenge in itself, at least from the Superman that I've read, to be able to just not, rip off door handles and blow the wrong way and people, and to look with his wrong vision and all these things that he must have to hold himself back on, let alone be that icon. I really like that.
And I mean, that's why I think he should always be treated as such in that way, right? Like, you're talking about a guy who got sent down to planet Earth, right? Because his entire planet was dying, gets sent to wherever it was that had inhabitable life, and he was raised up on a farm, raised up by Ma and Pa Kent, and is taught how to not only like live a regular human life. I mean, I would argue that Clark Kent is more of a normal person that we can relate to than Bruce Wayne is. I will never get the fancy gadgets. I'll never get the car. I'll never get all the females. But you know what I do have? I do have a regular life. I've got a small-time job like Clark Kent does at the Daily Planet. And I live amongst people like you and me. And that is something that I can definitely relate to, that Bruce Wayne does not have. I'm not amongst the top socialites. I don't know what billionaires of the higher elite class look like, but I do know what the working person looks like because that's all I've known for my life. That was life in the Philippines, and that's life for me here. And I've come to like realize that after I got to college and started actually reading Superman comics instead of like looking at Injustice, for example, as this is like the textbook definition of Superman. It's not. So that's my sort of character arc with learning how to appreciate Clark is for not only who is as a character, but also who he is as a superhero.
And it's so unfortunate that DC doesn't put out as much Superman material in collections as opposed to the Bats.
Well, that's because they know how much Batman sells, But not only that, but they are releasing some more Superman Omnis now. Which
Triangle, we got Triangle years.
What was that?
Red Sun.
Yeah. Well, that's coming out in Absolute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're getting a couple of more Omnis though, man. I hope we get all those Triangle years though, dude. I really, really hope we do. I feel like a collection should always be in flux, constantly growing, changing and evolving with you as a person. See, I'm only learning that now, man. I've always been the mindset that whatever books I own, they're staying on my shelf. I'm not getting rid of them. And it's only been the last year or so where, now I'm changing and trying to get rid of books that I've only gotten just cause. Dom, have you read Up, Up and Away?
That is a great book.
That is coming out.
Yeah, 1 year. The 1 year later stuff with Busiek, Johnson, Pacheco. Oh, I love that story.
I've related to Bruce ever since my parents were murdered in an alley after we saw Antonio Banderas' Zorro. Oh, mate. Okay. Well, they must have seen the wrong Zorro because it's 2 R's, mate. 2 R's. Sharif, what's your Desert Island comic?
I'd say my first Omni, Astonishing X-Men.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And not only it's my first Omni, it's my first Marvel Omni. I've read bits and pieces of X-Men. Never been a huge fan until Astonishing came up with a #1, and I said, "Oh, let me try this." Got the singles, loved it, and then found out what an Omni was, and it was coming out in that format. So, yeah.
So, Dom, you started reading X-Men apparently with the Krakoa Age, correct?
I did, but I've read a lot of X-Men since then, not just
Oh, that's what-
2019 onwards. I've read some Claremont, I've read all of Morrison and Whedon, and a lot of the 2000s bits with the Messiah Complex, Utopia era, and also Bendis is all X-Men. So I've gone
Yeah.
around.
Do you ever have any aspirations to make your own comic, by any chance?
I don't think I do. I don't think I have the technical skills to be able to write a book or draw a book. I think the most that I've dabbled with was that I wrote a Teen Titans fan fiction when I was like 17 years old. So I guess that was sort of like my emo. I was rewatching some of those Teen Titans episodes, just sort of like for the nostalgic bits to get it back in my childhood. I'm like, I wonder what it would be like reading or like writing a fan fiction or whatever. So I put one up. It's not up there anymore, but I got like 20 something comments because people were like, "Oh, I guess it's cool. We got another person who wants to bring the old show back." Because a lot of people were mad that they never made a season 6. Never came to fruition, anyways. But if someone asks me, like, if you want, because you know, some people do like the title pages or the logos or the graphic designs for books, even like, you know, like opening credits or whatever for a comic where it's just 2 pages of like, this is the writer, it's the artist. I wouldn't mind doing that. I think I could definitely see myself, like, you know, I get paid a decent amount for like some quick bucks. I wouldn't mind doing so, but I don't think I have the patience to write a comic at this point.
Do you ever dabble in art yourself, or would you say you're
I
more-
drew dinosaurs when I was a kid. I was a teenager. That was always my thing. I actually had one of my mom's like best friends. Her husband came over and visited the States, visited us, and actually taught me how to draw dinosaurs instead of like me tracing pictures from books I've read. We're sort of like, oh, that's how you do the circles, how you do the teeth, how you do the body and the proportions. And I've learned since then, unfortunately, my fandom with dinosaurs didn't last a lot longer than that, as I grew up and realized there were other interesting things in the world. But that is the most that I've gone with it. And I've only taken graphic design classes, but art always fascinates me just because of the temperament and time that it takes to do so. And man, we're blessed to have so many books with actual art, you know? I know that sometimes like artists don't like live up to expectations as well as some others, which I get that. And I think omnis tend more to the people who are interested in writing rather than the art. But to have all of this stuff like blown up and oversized is honestly a pretty crazy treat to see. That's also true a lot.
What's more interesting than dinosaurs? Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. It's funny how love for dinosaurs and being a little a child always goes hand in hand. I never fell out of love with dinosaurs. I always loved them. I still do.
Ever since like I went to Canada and I have family over in the province of Alberta. The best treat that I got while my family was there for a week was that I got to go to Drumkeller. Drumkeller is the home of the Albertosaurus and a super massive dinosaur museum. So I lived out my childhood when I got into that museum because we don't have anything like that here in California. I was like, man, it's that. I got mind blown. Like my dad and mom could feel it too. So they took as many pictures as they possibly could. And I had a lot of fun doing so.
What are your monthly must reads? The ones that you can't put down, you'll never stop, and so all current ones, whatever, however you want to answer that question.
That is a great question. Well, I don't think I'm ever going to stop reading X-Men anytime soon, even though we've definitely moved past the Krakoan age. Sort of like having that as like this 5-year fill-in. I'm reading X-Men by Jed McKay and also Uncanny by Simone. Both of those books I've found to be pretty interesting and fun starts of that bit of source. So I will never, ever put an X-Men book down. I'm really, really enjoying Birds of Prey by Kelly Thompson. I'm always interested whenever they bring in an all female led team, just for the case of, yes, I know that like some people are with, but like I personally love books with different dynamics where characters like you have Dinah Drake or Black Canary, Big Barda, Cassandra Cain on the team. Whenever you have like weird dynamics like that, weird power shifts and balance, I'm always into those types of books. And yeah, they bring in Birds of Prey. Like, yeah, I'm gonna be there first thing to read it because I find those books very, very enjoyable. I will also say, like, yeah, if there's a Batman book on the shelf, I'll always buy it, whether it's regular or detective. Because I still do like, I know like I gave a lot of crap with Batman, but I still do like him as a character. I still do, I've been like, Batman was one of the first books I read. So I will always have an affinity towards Bruce and his family and whatever he's doing. If there's a Titans book on the shelf, I'll always buy it because I grew up with the Titans. I grew up with those characters. So those books are probably always going to be in my pull no matter what. Even if it is shortening by the moment, I will always be there first thing in the morning whenever those are out.
What new stuff is coming out that you're looking forward to?
I feel like with the entire DC catalog, you just say,
I'm looking for absolute Superman.
Oh man, I will definitely be getting Superman Red Sun just like for the collection. I only read it in like trade paperback because that was what my library had, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money on it. But all my friends told me like, go read it. You know what? Even though I'm not high on it, I actually do want to get Tom Taylor Nightwing to read it for a second time through to see like if it feels a lot better than it did the first time. One thing I've noticed is that sometimes books don't hit with you the first time, or they do hit with you the first time.
Absolutely.
And whenever you get back into it and read it again, you learn something new that you didn't before. This goes, I think, for not only just every Grant Morrison book, but every single book you read. But you also get a better sense of, okay, like how does this book actually sit with you? Does it taste better? Does it feel better than you did the first time? Or maybe sometimes it just feels okay. Like maybe you don't need to read it again. Maybe it's one of those things. But if I had to pick something out from the brand new DC catalog, I will say Wonder Woman by Greg Rucka. I had the first 3 trade paperbacks, sold them all away. It's my favorite Wonder Woman run, and the fact that I'm getting it in omnibus is absolutely astounding. And second pick would probably be Suicide Squad by John Ostrander, Volume 1. I can't believe that we're getting that in omnibus finally. It's been a long time coming, and it's way overdue. So kudos DC for getting all that out.
Yeah, is it just me, or have DC really pumped them out in the last month or so? Is that normal? Because I don't know if I pay enough attention to DC as I do with Marvel, or if I am noticing that fact.
Well, I think DC tends to be a lot more creator-centric with a lot of their oversized collections, which is why they're not as critically acclaimed as Marvel in that case. Because Marvel, you pick up like an omnibus line, and you're 99.9% guaranteed to have every single issue mapped in the correct order and also there for your convenience. DC's has always been, if the book isn't by that person you see on the front of the cover, they're not going to collect it. You have that's the reason why we have a lot of awkward orphan issues out of certain omnibuses that should have been there to begin with anyways. Like for example, the Paul Dini Batman omnibus. That's my favorite Batman run, like that Detective Comics run. Flat hands down, like it's Batman animated series vibes, but also has a lot of the heartfelt moments that you should be getting from a book starring Bruce Wayne. But not everything is collected from that era in that omnibus. What I actually am impressed by for the most part with DC, and this has been true for the last 1-2 years, this definitely was not true when I got into comics, is that they are starting to look at the bigger picture, putting everything that they can in so that fans have a more comprehensive reading order. And not only that, they get as many of the books as they possibly can. And that's why I'm so proud of the direction that they've had with the collected editions department, because they fired all those people back in 2021, is because they looked at it and said, this is what fans want. This is what fans should expect. We are the second biggest comic book pub. We're DC Comics. They are home to some of the most iconic characters ever in fiction. Yep. And they should not be withholding themselves from that. And that's why I'm really, really happy with the seeming direction that they're going in.
Do you agree with this one? Tom Taylor to get off Titans?
I'm actually super surprised that he's getting off early because he's only up to issue 15. Very excited for the next era of Titans, though, with John Layman on the title, because it looks like he's going to be bringing in some different characters, because the Titans, as you might know, there are over 40 people who you could actually say, like, they can say that they're a Titan or a Teen Titan. Very excited to see where the next direction is headed into. That being said, though, I'm still surprised that Taylor was off so early, because it's crazy. Like 5 years ago, I would have been like, man, what if Tom Taylor wrote a Titans book? And here we are 15 issues later, and he's off of Titans.
So what's your perfect creative team?
I'm just tempted to go with my guns and say Morrison and Quietly, because I haven't really read anything those two have worked on together that I didn't like. I think if I were to pick one, man, there's just so many. There's just so many. You know, I'm going to say Paul Dini and Dustin Nguyen on Batman. I have loved whatever those two have done. Like, you have Dini, who's, one of the creative heads of the animated series and also multiple Batman and Detective Comics titles. Dustin Nguyen sending his watercolor style of art and paint. I think that would be my stereotypical answer, if you want to call it that.
See, I think I'm boring with that, and I instantly gravitate towards Bendis and Bagley just because of Ultimate Spider-Man. Yeah. What about you, Sharif? Who's your dream team?
Oh man, don't put me on the spot.
Like Omar says, that's what we do.
Man, I've got to fall back on my favorite creative team of Wade and Ross. Strong writing, strong art.
You know what I'd love to see with the Jeff Johns with the I've gone blank. Sorry, who's the one? Oh my god, the guy that's taken control of DC now from Guardians of the Galaxy. What's his name?
James Gunn.
James Gunn. Thank you. I blanked on his name. You know what I'd love to see from James Gunn? If he could pull out more TV shows like we were getting at the start with all the CW stuff. Because when all that started, all that was fantastic, right? I loved Arrow, and I loved the start of Flash and Supergirl and all that sort of stuff. But later on, that's a bit different.
It tends to happen with shows. You just either run out of material, or you get different writers and they just don't hit as well. Because I was heavily invested in those shows too.
Yeah, like I'd love more Peacemaker type shows and that are all connected.
I love Peacemaker, man. It's such an epic show.
You haven't watched it yet.
You're kidding.
No.
Dude,
It's
how
time.
have you? Oh, how have you not
Unrelated, Sharif. I love your Bucky shirt. Epic shirt. I wish I had something like that.
I just noticed it's so funny that both are Marvel and it's wearing Smallville. And I'm DC, but I'm wearing anyway.
that is a good point, actually. Sharif's got a massive collection too. I don't know what room are you in lately, dude? Because you always had this background like I did. So what's going on with your setup at the moment?
No, I had a guest. Well, this room was my comics room. I had a guest, and then I had to move things around. But my books should be coming back next month.
See, I don't know about this, man. I want to believe you about Superman and Lois. Is it? Hey, do you agree?
Yeah.
It's worth watching for sure.
Doomsday.
Okay,
unrelated, but my friend or my Discord friend auditioned for that show. He got turned down, but he did audition.
Oh, well. Because I watched the first few episodes and it was all right. I just didn't feel the need to really go back to it.
No, you should push through. After the first season, it gets better.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I loved Smallville, man.
That's still
Absolutely loved it. It wasn't his collection that was massive from what you told me. Okay, thank you very much for that. I heard Stargirl was really good, actually.
It's good, but that was a DC Universe original. But Jeff Johns, because he was the one who produced the entire show, he went to CW because of financial needs, and I do know that from the fact because I do have a friend of a friend who has worked on the special effects of that show.
Oh, cool. Awesome. All right, Sharif, you got anything else for our guest?
No, but back to one of
I want to let
comments.
him go.
The one bad day. So with the box set, that's could be a little dear to some people. I'd say as soon as I've gotten this one done, DC will definitely collect everything in one cover.
That's his custom.
That's it.
Man, you want to see some good custom books, you got to check out Sharif's stuff, man. It's crazy how good it is. Like Legion is saying right here about the Superman show. It doesn't make sense how good it is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, man, I feel like I could talk to you for a lot longer, but I'm not going to lie. Like for the last, I don't want to get into it, but for like the last 2 weeks, I have had this injury in my arm that is absolutely killing me. And I have been trying to put on a brave face for the last 2 hours, but I've been sitting here in absolute pain for the last 2 hours trying to ignore it. So I'm going to have to go because it's just, I need to go cry, and I'm just going to be all right after it. So I just want to say thank you very much for joining us, Dom. I am so thrilled that you actually initiated this. That doesn't happen very often. It's usually the other way around where I have to ask other people. You just said you'd like to come on. I latched onto that and we made it happen, brother. So thank you so much for actually doing it. We hope to have you back someday as well, man. You've been an absolute breath of fresh air. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for tolerating the pain. I was like, you know what? I mean, I know 4 a.m. is definitely not the ideal time that I would like to be up, but the sun's about to be up anyways, so what do I? I'm already. My sleep schedule is literally whenever the sun is up, I am up. I'm very happy to be here. And thank you for letting me talk for the last 2 hours.
Bring more DC guys. I'll try, man. I've been wanting to get you on the show for ages, but you never come on, man. So whenever you're free, let us know. Yeah, like, dude, I did not know that, like, because we don't really have that many different time zones here in Australia, right? There's slight ones, like an hour, maybe half an hour, but I forget what it's like in America. And when I'd worked out OmniDog his time, I just assumed that yours would be the same. When you told me that you were getting up at 4 a.m., I went, holy crap. Maybe we should have made this a bit later. So now that we know that you're in California, I'll check the time. We'll make it a more appropriate time for yourself. Okay?
No, you're good. Like I told you, I got my 8 hours of sleep, and I feel like I was energetic enough for those two. So, but yeah, I'm like 8 or 7 subscribers away from 1,200. So if you guys could make that happen, I could appreciate it.
Do it, click.
Stop showing off, man. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll throw it back at you. If we have the Australians or the Americans, whoever's watching AussieVerse normally, that they want to subscribe to Domovex, because I'm not just saying it because he's on the show, it's actually really good content. I'll throw it back at you as well. If you're a Domovex fan that's found yourself over here at AussieVerse, then subscribe and be a part of it, because we want to grow as well. And what's better than a community that grows all together? I don't have an answer to that. So let's just say I gave a real smart one to that. Sharif, now you've mucked this question up the last couple of times, brother. So I'm going to give you one. You're going to do it properly?
I'm going to muck it up again.
You're going to, okay, well, do you want to ask or not? Why am I doing it?
No, if there's one thing, one way to describe AussieVerse, what would it be?
Flamboyant.
Sharif, that is not the question. You stuffed it up again. You were meant to say, what is AussieVerse? It's really simple, man. We ask every guest, and every guest gives us a different answer. They never give us the right answer. A couple of people have. So I'm going to put it to you again now, Dom. What is AussieVerse?
The #1 spot for comic book people to be able to hang out with in an awesome community, not only just filled with Australians, but people around the globe.
So I have a lot of respect for you, brother. And I like you, right? So, like, I don't want to make you feel bad, right? I'd like to just say, yeah, that was a good answer, because it was a good answer. Don't get me wrong, but unfortunately, no, you are 100% incorrect, brother. What is AussieVerse? It is always and will be forever, for life. So we will catch you next time, ladies and gentlemen. Go check out Dom's channel. Go check him out on NEME Condition. He is on there very, very often. Omar is going live in about 3 hours. We'll be back here at AussieVerse some other time. Let's hope Dom graces us with his presence someday in the future. Thank you very much, AussieVerse. Dom, bye-bye.